There comes a moment in life when time stops whispering and starts speaking clearly, when the years you have lived rise up and ask one honest question: who truly deserves to walk beside you now? Old age is not about growing smaller, it is about growing wiser, and wisdom has a way of rearranging the room. Some people will feel uncomfortable when you no longer bend, no longer explain, no longer suffer quietly just to keep the peace. This message is not about anger or blame, it is about dignity, survival, and the sacred right to protect your remaining years. Because the truth is this: every soul that once stood close does not belong in your later chapters. And learning who to release may be the most loving decision you ever make. Old age is not a season for proving your worth. You have already stood the tests, carried the burdens, survived the nights that tried to break you. You have nothing left to audition for. Yet some people will still demand explanations, obedience, and sacrifice as if your years have taught you nothing. They question your choices, measure your value by usefulness, and forget that your presence alone is a testimony. In this chapter of life, worth is not earned through exhaustion. It is recognized through respect. Anyone who makes you feel small for standing tall in your truth is asking you to return to a place you have outgrown. There are those who confuse closeness with control. They believe love gives them permission to dictate how you live, what you feel, and when you should be grateful. They speak softly, but bind tightly, wrapping manipulation in familiar words. Over time, their presence becomes heavy, not because you lack love, but because love was never meant to feel like a burden. Old age teaches a quiet lesson. Real love does not require constant proof. If someone needs you to suffer to feel secure, they are not protecting you. They are consuming you. Then there are people who keep reopening chapters you have already healed from. They remind you of past mistakes, past failures, past versions of yourself, as if growth offends them. They do not celebrate your evolution because it threatens their memory of who they thought you were. But life is movement, and you are allowed to change without asking permission. Wisdom is knowing that you are not obligated to remain familiar for the comfort of others. Anyone who traps you in yesterday is stealing space meant for today. Some people, even in family, grow restless around your peace. Your calm unsettles them because it reflects the chaos they refuse to confront within themselves. They provoke, criticize, or create drama simply to feel alive. In old age, peace is not laziness, it is earned rest. You have fought enough wars. You do not need to explain why you now choose quiet mornings, gentle conversations, and boundaries that protect your spirit. Those who disrespect your need for calm are asking you to bleed again for their entertainment. And finally, there are those who only appear when they need something: your time, your energy, your patience, your forgiveness. They disappear when you need understanding or care. Their love is transactional, their concern temporary. Old age reveals this truth with clarity. Relationships should not drain what little strength remains. You are allowed to step back without guilt. You are allowed to choose distance over depletion. This season of life is not about shrinking your world, it is about refining it. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming selective. You are not abandoning people, you are honoring yourself. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is wisdom speaking softly but firmly. And when you finally choose yourself, you teach everyone around you a powerful lesson: that your later years are not leftovers, but a sacred harvest meant to be lived with dignity, freedom, and grace. As the years pass, something quietly changes inside you. The hunger to be applauded fades, and in its place rises a deeper desire to breathe without tension, to rest without guilt, to live without constantly explaining yourself. Approval once felt like oxygen, but now you recognize how exhausting it was to chase. Peace, on the other hand, arrives softly. It does not shout your name or clap for your sacrifices, but it stays. And in old age, staying matters more than being praised. There was a time when disagreement felt dangerous, when silence felt like rejection, and when pleasing others seemed safer than standing alone. But life has taught you otherwise. You have seen how approval can be taken away without warning, how it shifts with moods, opinions, and convenience. Peace does not behave that way. It does not abandon you because you changed your mind or chose yourself. It settles into your bones and reminds you that you are allowed to live at your own pace now. Some people will struggle with this change in you. They were comfortable when you sought their nod, their validation, their permission. Your calm independence confuses them. They may call you distant, stubborn, or selfish because you no longer bend the way you once did. But what they are truly witnessing is growth. You are not harder, you are clearer. You are not less loving, you are more honest about where your energy goes. Peace asks different questions than approval ever did. It asks whether a conversation nourishes or drains you. It asks whether a relationship brings warmth or constant tension. It asks whether your silence feels heavy or healing. Old age sharpens these questions, not to isolate you, but to protect what remains precious. You no longer have the luxury of wasting emotional strength on endless conflict or shallow validation. Choosing peace may mean disappointing others, and that truth can sting at first, but disappointment fades faster than resentment. When you abandon your peace to please others, the cost lingers. Sleepless nights, tight chests, unspoken anger. These are the hidden prices of approval. Peace, even when it comes with loneliness, still allows you to sleep with a clean heart. There is a quiet courage in walking away from arguments you no longer need to win. There is wisdom in letting misunderstandings remain misunderstood when explaining yourself would only reopen wounds. Old age is not about proving you were right all along. It is about living gently with what is left. Peace does not need witnesses, it only needs your consent. When you finally choose peace over approval, something sacred happens. Your voice softens, your reactions slow, your days feel lighter. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop waiting for people to see you correctly. You begin to see yourself clearly instead. And that clarity becomes enough. This is not withdrawal from life, it is arrival. You arrive at a place where your worth no longer depends on applause, agreement, or acceptance. You arrive at yourself. And in that quiet arrival, you discover that peace was never something you had to earn. It was something you were always allowed to choose. Love that hurts is not love, no matter who gives it. And this truth often arrives late, after years of endurance disguised as loyalty. You may have been taught that love requires sacrifice, silence, and patience without limits, but there is a difference between sacrifice and self-erasure. Pain that repeats itself, pain that diminishes your spirit, pain that asks you to accept less dignity with each passing year is not proof of love's depth. It is proof that something essential is missing. For a long time, you may have excused the hurt because of history. You remembered shared meals, shared struggles, shared blood. You told yourself that love sometimes wounds, that closeness can be messy, that endurance is a virtue. But old age has a way of clearing the fog. It shows you patterns instead of promises. It teaches you to notice how often your heart feels heavy after certain interactions, how your body tightens before certain voices, how your joy shrinks in the presence of people who claim to love you. Real love does not require you to constantly brace yourself. It does not make you rehearse your words out of fear. It does not punish you for being honest or peaceful. Love can challenge you, yes, but it does not break you down and call it care. If someone's affection leaves you feeling smaller, ashamed, or exhausted, then what they are offering is control, habit, or convenience, not love. Sometimes the hardest truth is accepting that harm can come from familiar hands. Family love, in particular, is often placed beyond question, wrapped in obligation and expectation. You are told to tolerate pain because of who someone is to you, not because of how they treat you. But love is not defined by titles. It is defined by how safe you feel, how respected you are, how free you remain within it. Any bond that requires you to lose yourself to keep it intact is already broken. Old age brings permission to stop pretending. You no longer have to rename suffering as patience or call neglect understanding. You can acknowledge that love should heal more than it hurts. And if it does hurt, it should hurt once, not over and over again in the same place. Growth teaches you that recurring pain is a message, not a test of endurance. Letting go of painful love does not mean you failed. It means you learned. It means you finally listened to the quiet wisdom inside you that said, "This costs too much." Walking away is not bitterness. It is self-respect catching up with experience. You are not rejecting love. You are refining your definition of it. In this season of life, love should feel like rest, not resistance. It should feel like warmth, not walking on glass. You deserve connections that soften your days, not sharpen your wounds. And when you choose to step back from love that hurts, you are not closing your heart. You are protecting it, so that whatever time remains can be lived with gentleness, truth, and the kind of love that finally feels like home. Blood does not excuse emotional wounds, and this realization often arrives with a quiet ache rather than anger. For many years, you may have endured sharp words, cold silences, or constant criticism simply because it came from family. You told yourself that family is forever, that loyalty demands tolerance, that pain is just part of closeness. But time has a way of teaching harder truths. Shared blood explains connection, not permission. It may explain where you come from, but it does not justify how you are treated. Emotional wounds do not hurt less because they come from familiar faces. In fact, they often hurt more. When harm comes from strangers, you can walk away easily. When it comes from family, it settles deeper because it carries expectation, memory, and obligation. You expected safety there. You expected understanding. Instead, you learned how to stay quiet, how to minimize your feelings, how to survive without being seen. Old age reveals how heavy that survival has been. There is a deep difference between honoring family and sacrificing yourself for them. Honor should never require humiliation. Connection should never demand that you accept disrespect as normal. Yet many elders carry scars they never named because they were taught that naming them would break the family. What they were never told is that silence also breaks something, slowly, inwardly, and painfully. Protecting others at the cost of your own emotional health is not strength, it is neglect of the self. Some family members believe history gives them immunity. They think years together excuse sharp tongues and careless behavior. They expect forgiveness without change, access without accountability. But old age brings clarity. It shows you that patterns matter more than apologies, and consistency reveals more than promises. If the wound keeps reopening, then the relationship is not healing, it is harming. And you are allowed to acknowledge that without hatred or drama. Choosing distance does not mean you lack love. It means you finally understand its boundaries. Love does not require daily access. Sometimes love survives best with space, with fewer conversations, with less emotional exposure. You can wish someone well and still protect your heart from their behavior. You can keep respect without allowing repeated injury. Old age teaches that closeness is not measured by proximity, but by peace. There is grief in accepting this truth. Grief for what you hoped family would be. Grief for conversations that never felt safe. Grief for support that should have been given freely. Allow that grief. It is part of releasing illusion. You are not weak for feeling it. You are honest. And honesty is the beginning of healing. In this stage of life, you are not required to keep reopening wounds to prove loyalty. You are allowed to choose calm over chaos, dignity over duty, emotional safety over tradition. Blood may connect bodies, but respect connects souls. And as you move forward, let this truth settle gently within you. You can honor where you came from without allowing it to keep hurting you. Protecting your heart now is not betrayal. It is wisdom earned through living. Respect should grow with age, not disappear, because every year lived is a lesson paid for in time, effort, and endurance. When someone grows older, they do not become invisible, they become layered. They carry stories, sacrifices, and silent victories that are not always spoken aloud. Yet there are people who begin to listen less, interrupt more, and dismiss what an elder says as outdated or irrelevant. This quiet disrespect does not announce itself loudly, but it erodes dignity one moment at a time. Old age deserves reverence, not reduction. There was a time when your voice was sought, when your opinion mattered, when people leaned on your strength. Now, some may speak as if your experience has expired, as if wisdom has an expiration date. They forget that knowledge does not vanish with wrinkles, and insight does not weaken with slower steps. To be older is not to be behind. It is to be ahead, having already walked roads others are just beginning to imagine. Disrespect often comes from those who fear what they have not yet lived. When respect fades, it often disguises itself as impatience. People rush you, correct you harshly, or speak to you as if you no longer understand the world. They confuse speed with intelligence and volume with truth. But wisdom moves differently. It pauses, it reflects, it chooses words carefully. Old age brings a depth that cannot be hurried, and those who fail to recognize this reveal their own lack of understanding, not yours. Family can sometimes be the most careless with respect because familiarity dulls gratitude. They forget the hands that fed them, the nights you stayed awake worrying, the strength you gave when you had little left. Instead of honoring that history, they treat you as an obligation rather than a presence. This kind of disrespect hurts deeply because it ignores the foundation you helped build. Respect should not fade with comfort, it should deepen with remembrance. There is nothing wrong with expecting courtesy in your later years. You are not asking for worship, only acknowledgement. Being spoken to kindly, listened to patiently, and treated as a full human being is not a privilege, it is a right. Old age does not erase your need for dignity. If anything, it strengthens it. You have earned the right to be treated with gentleness, not condescension. When respect disappears, distance may become necessary. This is not punishment, it is protection. You are allowed to step back from people who make you feel small, unheard, or burdensome. You do not need to argue for your value. Respect that must be begged for is already lost. Choosing space is sometimes the only way to preserve self-worth when others refuse to recognize it. In this season of life, let respect be your measure. Notice who listens when you speak, who considers your feelings, who honors your pace. Keep them close. And for those who do not, release them without bitterness. Respect should grow with age because life itself has shaped you into someone worthy of it. And anyone who cannot see that is revealing not your decline, but their own inability to honor what time has refined. Your silence can be a form of self-care, especially after a lifetime of explaining yourself to people who were never truly listening. There comes a point when words begin to feel heavy, not because you have nothing to say, but because saying it has changed nothing. Silence then becomes a shelter. It is not emptiness, it is space, space to breathe, to think, to feel without interruption. In old age, silence is not retreat, it is rest. For many years, you may have believed that silence meant weakness or defeat. You were taught to respond, to defend, to clarify, to fix misunderstandings even when they were not yours to fix. You learned to talk through pain, to negotiate for peace, to explain your intentions again and again. But time teaches a gentler truth. Not every statement deserves a response, and not every conflict deserves your voice. Some conversations only drain what little energy remains. Silence becomes powerful when you realize it protects you from unnecessary wounds. When you stop engaging with those who provoke, belittle, or dismiss you, you deny them access to your inner world. You are no longer available for arguments that go nowhere or explanations that fall on closed ears. This silence is not coldness, it is discernment. It is knowing when your words will be valued and when they will be wasted. There are people who become uncomfortable with your quiet. They were used to your reactions, your justifications, your emotional labor. When you grow silent, they may accuse you of being distant, proud, or difficult. But what they are truly reacting to is the loss of control. Your silence reminds them that they are no longer the center of your emotional life, and that discomfort is not your responsibility to ease. In old age, silence also becomes a way of listening to yourself again. Without constant noise from others' expectations, you begin to hear your own needs clearly. You notice when your body is tired, when your heart feels heavy, when your spirit needs calm instead of conversation. Silence reconnects you with intuition, the quiet wisdom that has always been there, waiting for room to speak. Silence can hold grief without performing it. It can carry disappointment without turning it into drama. It allows you to process loss, change, and aging at your own pace. Not everything needs to be explained aloud to be understood within. Some healing happens without words, in still mornings, slow evenings, and moments where you simply allow yourself to be. This does not mean you stop communicating altogether. It means you choose carefully. You speak where there is safety, respect, and understanding. You withhold where there is judgment, manipulation, or cruelty. Your silence becomes selective, intentional, and protective. It draws a boundary without raising your voice. In this stage of life, you are allowed to rest your tongue and protect your heart. You have already spoken enough truths for one lifetime. Now, you get to choose peace over noise, calm over conflict, and silence over unnecessary strain. And in that silence, you may discover something deeply healing, the sound of your own well-being finally being heard.